Oh my goodness. I am so excited for today. We are in the middle of summertime. It is hot as blazes in Texas right now, but we are going to cool off right now with some of the coolest panel I've ever had on the show because it goes back to childhood. The nostalgia has shot us in the face, and we're going to be talking about that 90s TV show Wishbone in the documentary. Preston Barta is with me. How you doing, Preston?
I'm great. Just to be honest, like I'm so thrilled to be part of this talk today because not only is it special that we're getting to talk to people who have a connection to our own backyard, but I was at the perfect age to watch Wishbone. I watched it religiously. My wife and I watch it with our son. So it very much to me like many PBS works in the 90s did. It connected me deeply with literature and made me want to learn more, so much so that I got a bachelor's degree at the University of North Texas in English literature. So really, thank you for being a part of my journey. It's an honor.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Wow.
Great to
No, and
hear.
it's
That's
great. In watching this documentary that's out, it's called "What's the Story?" Wishbone, and I'm watching it, and it like brought back a memory because I was formerly a husky model and a husky actor back in the day, and I auditioned for this show at Kim Dawson Studios off of Motor Street, and I
no
saw like the
way.
line wrapping around, and I was like dying. I was like, "Oh, I remember being there when I was that age," but this documentary is like a gold mine to me because you have something that's teaching kids the best of literature and books, like Preston said, and through the eyes of a family and a great dog. So let's jump into this, shall we? We've got
Okay.
Joey Stewart, Larry Brantley, Betty Buckley on the show today, so we're real excited. But I just want to start with all of you making this documentary, being a part of this show. Have fans, like I guess Preston did, but have fans over the years told you that Wishbone have changed the course of their lives or education because of this show, like Preston?
This
Yes,
is good.
I'll start. So yeah, I mean that is understating the matter completely. I started doing cons a few years ago, and I had stayed away from cons because of my twin dislikes of crowds and people, but whatever. Um, uh, and almost immediately, I hung my banner up, and people started coming up, and that was what they wanted to talk about. They wanted to talk about Wishbone. They wanted to talk about the influence it had on them personally, in some cases, career choices, and that's never stopped. I mean, back pre-email days, we would get fan mail, and and then with the advent of social media, people still want to have conversations about that. It's been obviously a lot. We've gotten a lot more of that since the we started talking about the documentary and the fact that it drops today, Wednesday, June 10th. Um, so yeah, it's as Joey says, the show never actually went away.
Yeah. Betty or Joey, have you had those instances as well with you?
Well, it's the reason, in a sense, that we did the documentary. After you jumped off of Wishbone way back in the '90s, and then you have different shows you jump onto, and that's really the only thing anybody ever wanted to talk to me about. And I think we all agree with that. They want when they hear you worked on Wishbone, that's the questions they start peppering you with: is, "Oh my gosh, you worked on Wishbone. Tell me about the dog. Tell me about this." And that's the inception of the documentary. That's why we decided to do it. It was because of
It's
guys like
true.
you.
And
It's true, and I actually teach at the university level now, and so my kind of intersection with it is people that recognize it. So I was talking about the fact that I worked on Wishbone, and this young man in my class was like, "Oh my God, my dad was Calliope in Dog Days of the West." So having
Hmm.
that kind of interaction, and then having other students said, "Well, my mom used it to help teach." So yeah, it's been amazing.
no, that is great. And then just going through this documentary that has this treasure trove of information and how the show was made and all these wonderful people, you take a look at Wishbone, the show, which is my mind blows every time we're in like 30 years ago. Like, wait, what? 30 years ago? And something that was, 50 episodes, 2 seasons, made such an impact that people are still clamoring for it today. Do you think, Joey, Larry, Elizabeth, what do you think is that one word or that one sentence spark that the show has lived on through generations that it had?
Well, it changed the course, I think, of their lives. It gave them an appreciation for reading and opened their world to classic literature. I mean, what little 6-year-old is going to start reading classic novels, except that Wishbone guided them to do that?
Yeah, and I would say it's the dog,
It is
because
the
it
dog.
all came through the dog with just so much joy. So that's my word, the dog.
For me, it's a line that Rick Duffield delivers in the film, which is, you know, kids think of themselves as a very small part of what to them at the time is a very big world, but what if they could be the hero in their own story? And that's essentially what we did with the show was we put Wishbone in that position, but every kid could see themselves as the hero in the story. And I think that's something that has a long lasting value when you're young and impressionable.
There's a part in the documentary where someone says something along the lines of that Wishbone helped people see the grand and epic in things. And so I'm curious for each of you, how did the world of Wishbone allow you to see the grand and epic in things yourself? Like, what tools did it give you in terms of wonder and curiosity? Because you're hearing, like, people like myself who are saying, this is what it did for me, but considering you're on the other side of things, like, what does that do for you? Like, even after it's over and you have time to kind of sit with things and digest things that maybe it makes you want to go to the bookstore and grab something or dive down a educational rabbit hole of some sort.
Well, I love that you mentioned, the bookstore, because for me, um, post Wishbone, and one thing that was really exciting for me is my son at the beginning when we were starting couldn't read. And by
Mm.
the end of the first season, he could read. So books and bookstores and libraries are just, for me, it's just heaven. So that's, yeah, it was in the process of making it, we got to see and participate in all these grand and epic things. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Joey, what do you think?
Oh man. I mean, at the time, we were just young filmmakers and we were in a bubble for about a year before it even came
That's
out.
true.
So I don't think I realized what was happening until a year later when it came out. And then really for me, it was watching my career grow and then looking back and seeing that not every project you get to work on can make a difference like that, can make an impact in
Mhm.
people's lives. Most of these things, or many that we do, it's a 2 hour bit of entertainment. They watch it on the screen, they walk out the door, and that's over. But Wishbone was a whole different story. So that's what it meant to me.
And I'll simply add to that a couple of things I got from the show. The first thing I got from a practical toolkit point was working on that show made me a much better actor because I had almost zero experience when I got cast. I
Mm.
was essentially cast because of my ability to be a smartass. And so that's just true. I
That's
mean,
true.
that was the one
That's
talent I
very true.
displayed that day that apparently was enough to get me the job.
Yeah.
But I got to work with these unbelievably talented actors, particularly from the repertory company, guys like Joe Nimmers and Sally Vale and Matt Tompkins and I mean just Sean Hennigan, just a whole host of people that were classically trained actors who took their craft very seriously. And so being surrounded by them every day I had to up my game. That was the first thing. Now, the other thing that I got as a young 20 something was the first season had wrapped, and Rick and Betty decided that I and soccer should go on the road in support of the show. And so we went out across the country to every major market there was to go to. And everywhere we went, we were doing live appearances, radio and television interviews, that kind of thing. And the crowds were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I had been in that bubble with Joey and Betty too, and so and this is pre-internet, pre-social media, so we
Right.
have no way of knowing if anybody's even watching the show until I went out on the road. And when I saw those crowds and when I saw the love that they had, that they would stand in line for hours for an opportunity to see a dog in a costume,
Hmm.
what I got from that was a deep sense of humility.
Hmm.
Because I suddenly realized this isn't just my project. This isn't just our little thing in Texas that we were working on just for us. We sent that out into the world and it's been received, and this is people's response to that. And
Yeah.
so that was a gift for a young actor who's a little too full of himself that is almost beyond measure.
Larry, since you mentioned Texas, and I already mentioned that both me and Bryan are from Dallas and North Texas at large, and so because of the series' deep roots with North Texas and Dallas, like I have to know for each of you how Texas, the Dallas area, in some way or another, has strengthened your creative DNA as a whole.
Well, it's a great question. I mean, I came to Dallas in January of 1993 with
Hmm.
two other pals from high school with a very specific intent. Our intent was because we knew that Dallas was a huge commercial market in the 90s and that there were a lot of big corporations here who did a lot of industrial training videos. And those two things are great to build a resume with. So our plan was we were going to build a resume for 2 years and then go out to Los Angeles and become Hollywood actors and movie or TV stars. That was the plan. That plan got derailed immediately when I landed a TV series in North Texas.
Yeah.
And so the first thing is North Texas gave me a career. And it allowed me to work inside a circle of people that is a big circle, but not so big that I know a lot of people still to this day. That was one of the great things about working on that show. The cast and crew was huge, far bigger than any other children's or family television show was doing at the time, and I don't think anybody's done it since. So you were befriending people from all across the spectrum in terms of what they did to make television and film. And you realize what an incredibly diverse and talented group of people we have here in North Texas and still have. And so I never found it necessary to leave because by the time Wishbone had come out, I had a TV and film family, and I was kind of reluctant to leave that family. Um, so, you ask about creativity. Oh my gosh. I mean, from everything from TV and film to the writing scene to the music, I was listening to McMurtry this morning. He's a Texas boy. And
Mhm.
so like there's so much talent here in the arts. And we were just very lucky to come along at a time when we got the benefit of those incredibly talented people.
You ask really good questions, you guys.
Thank you.
Um, but and that's a really good one. For me, what it proved is something, I'd been working in the industry in Dallas, um, and I worked on some movies, but as a production coordinator. And then I was sort of production managing things when I got this job. And, but to have the opportunity to put together a team from writing and producing me, and the whole writing, research team, we brought in some writers, but the actors, I mean, I really believed that it was all there, but the fact that we pulled it together and it was all there, and that we were able to do that, because very often the shows that come to Texas don't have it, sprinkled from the creative from the beginning. And started with Rick, and Stephanie was brilliant showrunner, but all of our department heads, and very often, like on a lot of these shows that would come in, they bring their department head. So it really, for me, was so exciting that we were able to pull that off. And we did. And I have to say, it's my responsibility, but I didn't think about it too much because I was like, well, I got this job, I got to do it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And there's fantastic, amazing, talented people. So it was really pulling in everybody that was sort of ready, and such a great opportunity that people were like, yeah, send me in, coach. I remember when I had Stephen Kuche come in for the interview, I was just joking and he'd won an Emmy, and I said, oh, bring your Emmy. And so he did. And so he walked into the meeting with Rick, and he came in and he set it down and he said, if you hire me, you're going to get one of those. And he did. So yeah,
Wow.
it was amazing.
Larry, you brought up that the smartass was with you back then. Is the smartass still with you today?
It's in my gene pool. I mean, you see Joey nodding his head aggressively right there. That is 100% true. It is part of my DNA. And I always intended it to be a part of the personality of the character because that's what I saw in Soccer when I would observe him. It was a playful cockiness that I wanted to put into the character. And a lot of that came out in some of the improvisational lines because Soccer would do something on camera that was not scripted, but it was such a good moment visually that the director didn't want to lose the shot. And so once we got that into post-production, I'd sit down with Rick and Stephanie while we were in the recording booth and try to figure something out. And those were generally the moments where the smart ass got to come out a little bit. But I also think that personality trait lended itself to a wider audience, an older audience.
Joey, I'll start with you on this. Making the documentary is did anything, was there a memory for you, Joey, or Larry, or Betty, that was unlocked making this documentary? And did it change your personal perspective on the cultural impact that the show had and what it could today?
Ooh,
You start, Joey. He said you
man,
first.
it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I don't know. It was just a huge task. We had a story we were trying to tell, and going in, we thought it was going to be a 10-part miniseries. To be honest, there were so many stories and so many threads. So getting this thing down to an hour and a half was a bear. But to answer your question, I'm not sure, Betty.
Well, I mean, I guess the memory that it unlocked, it sort of underscores the fact that we had an inkling because of some Zoom meetings we did. Joey and I talked about this on a movie uh, that we did in San Antonio, and then we had Zoom meetings on the pandemic, and we just had this inkling that, yeah, do we have a story? We have a story, and how we made it, and the fact that what it's unlocked is like you guys. It's like yeah, I think so. So that's been really, really powerful and fun and overwhelming to some extent, to see that so and also to reconnect with it. So when we made the show and then we broadcast it, and then we really didn't know the impact until Larry did this tour, not fully. But to have that come back and feel the love is just nothing better. It's just magnificent. So it's
Um,
reaffirming that.
yeah. So I'll piggyback onto what Betty said. Making the documentary, you do this thing in your life. It's wonderful. It's a moment in time. You move on down the road. You've got a career. You have other things to do. You live your life. You get married. You get divorced. You have kids. Whatever. Then you sort of have this moment where it comes back around, right? Joey and Betty called and said, "Hey, this is what we're doing. We'd like you to be a part of it." I was in immediately. Part of my job on the film was to conduct all of the interviews. And so getting to have conversations with these people, many of whom I hadn't seen in 30 years, what was unlocked for me was that moment of looking in their eyes and us realizing at the same time, oh my gosh, we got to do that. We got to be there and do that. And so now we're talking about daily life on set. We're talking about the craft service. We're talking about this funny thing that happened when, and all these little stories come tumbling out of people who probably hadn't given a lot of thought to that in a very long time. And so it was that reconnect and having those interviews, but having them as a conversation. It was just a really beautiful moment for all of us. And Made more so by the fact that after we had people in the chair and their interview was finished, they did not want to leave the studio.
It's
They hung
true.
around for the next interview. And we all just, they just kept growing and growing and growing. Finally, like, we were going to take this party somewhere. So our buddy Dean Weaver, who was an electrician on the show, has a brew pub. So eventually we all went over there because we wanted to continue the conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Yeah.
We wanted to keep sharing these memories. And then, you know, and yeah, so that was what was unlocked for me while we were making the film.
Joey, I wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to go through the Rolodex of your own Dallas memories, because
Sure.
I know, in addition to being a part of this series shot here, you did Walker, Texas Ranger, and I have a relative who was an extra on that show pretty
I
regularly.
was too, Preston. I was a homeless kid in 2 episodes.
So you're responsible for our childhood. So all there is to say. But you also worked with a friend of the show. He's been on the show quite a few times, David Lowery,
Yeah.
you know, the old man in the
Oh,
gun.
wow.
Yeah, he's been on
And
the show.
then Oliver Stone's JFK, which shot here. So I feel like we could spend quite a bit of time just going through those memories.
You're right. You're right. I mean, I fully expected to have to move to LA to work in this industry, or honestly, just become a manager of Blockbuster. But you know, I just started knocking on doors. I didn't know the film industry had such a big community here. Immediately got on JFK as a PA, and then just started bouncing around in production. And Wishbone was a big hit for my career, getting to move up into first AD, and then a bunch of movies. Then Walker, Texas Ranger. Sure, I probably told you guys to go from here to there and then go sit and make this move as an extra. You know, we're doing hundreds of extras every day. My main job on Walker actually
He's good at that.
was running the stunt units and the action units.
Oh, wow.
So that was a blast. That was trial by fire. And then, yeah, being able to work with David Lowery running the Texas portion of Old Man and the Gun, what a great experience. Robert Redford, his last film, and David, just the coolest director ever. So yeah, it's really cool to be able to live in Dallas, be dug in, not have to move your family out of Texas, and just work with the community that's here. I think it's a bigger community than anybody thought. They're sure realizing it now with
Yeah.
Yellowstone and Landman and everything. So.
Right.
Go Texas.
I think, speaking of that community, I think what also is very special about watching this documentary is seeing how many different voices, how many women are a part of this project. Like, especially in North Texas, you know, we had Barney that was also ran by women. And so I'm just curious about what working with like PBS or being a part of the North Texas community allowed the talent of all different kinds to just be a part of a project like this.
Well, the way we wrangled our talent was through Rhodey Kent, and she was amazing. We also worked with Kevin Howard for a time, and she, you know, Rhodey worked all over the country, and she just knew everybody, and she was just amazing. And just she had the idea of that company. I know you've seen that, and that's in the movie, but it was really unique and phenomenal because that was the way that she felt like we could keep the attention of the very best classically trained actors. So what was really more important to us was their theater background, because we were going to be throwing Shakespeare at them. So, and then, you know, expanding that both, you know, all the way to extras was just, you know, trying to be inclusive, you know, we including the animals, you know. some people would bring their dogs to set, or their, you know, we didn't have cats, those are too hard to wrangle. But yeah, and yeah, we did have a lot of women. You know, I founded Women in Film Dallas, wanting to kind of have a way for women to connect. And the fact that we, you know, Stephanie was our showrunner was amazing. And yeah, so it's in a wonderful, wonderful community. I now live in the Hill Country, so I actually see Texas from a little more of a global perspective, because I'm literally 1 hour from San Antonio, 1 hour from Austin, not too far from Houston, and my roots and my home are in Dallas. So it's an amazing creative community.
Yeah, that's special.
That is wonderful. I'll start with Larry talking about doing this documentary and all these memories being unlocked. When you were filming the actual show, Wishbone, in the 90s, did you have an outer body experience at any moment where you just kind of looked at it and said, wow, this show is amazing?
Yes. I think that happened. Well, it happened on the very first day of shooting. And again, this is all brand new to all of us, right? So, but for me, that moment happened. So let me back up just a step. I thought, as the guy who's doing the voice of the main character, that I was going to work 1 day a week, that I was going to work in a studio, that I have to wait for them to film it and get it all edited, and then I'll come in and do my thing. But at the first table read, which was for Oliver Twist, I was there along with all the other, like I said, classically trained actors. And Rick and Betty grabbed me at the end of the table read and they said, hey, we think it would be a good idea if you actually were on set for principal photography to read with the other actors in the way you just did, as opposed to having a script supervisor just read your lines or feed your lines to actors. And I said, yes, of course. So I then went to working the entire time on set. And that first day, for all of us, with the exception of the people who'd been at the audition, was the first day all of the actors and crew saw the character come to life in real time. Because now I was on set. Michael Haynes, our sound guy, had a speaker that he ran out to the set. I was back with him at the sound department, and I had a hi8 monitor so I could see what the camera sees. I could hear the other actors through the boom mic. They could hear me through the speaker. And I just started doing what I'd done at the audition. And it was really funny because the first time it happened, all of the other on-camera live people actors were like, wait, is this okay? This is how we're doing it. Okay, this is real. And it was really cool to see the character come to life in real time. And that became the process for how we did every episode. And I remember thinking, I don't know that this has ever been done before, and then I started saying that a lot during the course of filming the first season. I don't think this has ever been done before. An entire Civil War reenactment with a dog firing a musket or whatever. There were constantly lots of those moments. So I think over the course of the first season, for me anyway, is when I started to go, yeah, this is unique. I don't know if anybody else is going to like it, but we dig it, so.
We dug it a lot. I kind of think of your question as the Camelot question, at least it is for me, because I do remember one day specifically on the back lot getting out of my car because we'd finally gotten over the hump of how are we going to do this, and we had a pattern. We were doing it right, and we had these wonderful tools, and then this character was the magical combination of Larry's voice and this amazing little dog, all right there. And then the backlot was fantastic. It was beautiful. We built this neighborhood. We had this, I called it the Lego set, where we did the fantasy things. We just have the kind of the bones and the structure and add different front parts and cobblestone streets. And I got out of my car and I was like, oh my gosh, I get to do this. This is my job. So yeah, it finally hit me. And I thought, I don't know how long it's going to last, but I'm going to love every moment.
I had no idea at the time. I was just a young, stressed out first AD getting to do that for the first time in my career, watching this big show around me. And it was all my responsibility to make sure it came in on time and on budget and on schedule. And so you gotta work the kids' hours, the dog hours. When are these sets going to be ready? When I was just a stressed out little filmmaker hoping to make it in the film industry and not get fired. So it was a while before I realized I didn't really have time to stop and look around and realize what a special project it was till a little bit later.
Yeah. He was watching his watch every 10 seconds.
Well, I guess
when
making
the question, where's Larry?
Where were you?
I was always right by the microphone where I was supposed to be.
He was in the dog box,
So, and a funny story is if we were running the scene and I didn't hear Larry's voice coming through that speaker, I would do the voice just to keep things moving. And boy, I would get the riot act from Larry every once in a while. He'd come storming the set and go, Joey, you can do the voice. I'm just going to go home. And I'm like, oh. Because by inadvertently the speaker wasn't turned on yet on the set. So
or to be fair, and he admitted this later, Michael Haynes would often mute that speaker so you couldn't hear me on purpose to do exactly get me riled up and get me walking on set because he thought that was funny.
Yeah. And poor Joey, he's moving it forward because, me and Rick would put all this pressure on. We've got to make our days. We've got to make our days. So I just found this picture of three of our ADs just all looking at their watches like, because it was like that. It was sort of calm, organized panic. We had to get through a lot, and it had to be, but one thing that Joey's really skilled about is moving everything forward, and you don't see a lot of maybe that energy inside, so that the set would feel very relaxed and fun in general. And Larry made it even more fun because that's where because of that smart aleck voice, So yeah, he did a great job, but it was a hard job, very hard.
Larry, how did playing voice in Wishbone impact your psychology or even your own personality post the show or even in between episodes? Because as we see in the documentary, like you're in the doghouse, as you already mentioned, you're doing the voice in there. You're essentially kind of cut off from what's going on the rest of the set, and you're kind of experiencing things through a viewfinder or even on the monitor, and then post the show when you're watching the show as well. That I can't help but think that maybe during your downtime, you're like voicing inanimate objects or something to kind of give it its own personality. So I'm just curious what that journey was like for you.
Well, so giving license to animals and even inanimate objects is something I've been doing since I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
And you can blame Mel Blanc for that. I was a big Looney Tunes fan growing up. He was the man with 1,000 voices. Just always thought that was the coolest thing in the world, never dreaming that someday I'd make a living at it. But back to production days, we worked long and hard on that show. And yes, I was in a booth, but there were also times when I was, like when we were out on the back lot, I wasn't necessarily isolated. I was certainly not on set. But in between shots, I would sit down wherever I was and read. I was and still am an avid reader. If we were working on an episode that was based on a book I had not read before, then I was generally reading that book.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I was trying to get as far ahead as I could to understand what's happening in the scene. But then, downtime at home was mostly just recovery because we worked long hours on that set. And, I've had plenty of people go, well, you were just the voice actor, but I was there and I was working. So no, I didn't really do that at home. My first wife got sick of that nonsense really quick. Like, I don't need to know what the potato chip sounds like. And I don't need to, like, when you slap a steak on the grill, I don't need to hear it scream. So please stop doing all of those things.
Yeah.
So we would just hang out and just try to be normal, realizing completely that, the job I was doing was in no way normal. It was crazy, and it was organized chaos, organized very well by Joey, I might add. So that, it was a job. Never really felt like a job. And then my entire career has been spent trying to recapture the magic that we had in those times. And I've long since come to grips with the fact that I'm never going to recapture that particular magic because it wasn't just the circumstance, it was the people. And it was the time period, and like everything, all of the stars aligned to allow us to do what we did to make that show what it was. And without any one of those elements and all of the people that you see in the documentary, maybe that doesn't happen. So mostly what I am is just grateful.
So since you mentioned that you would, in those in-between moments, read the source material, were there any like nuances that you picked up out of doing those readings that you brought to the show in some way through the observation of Soccer's behavior that, it armed you with something that you used in a second, in just a second?
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. I think Betty will back me up on this. So Stephanie Simpson, our showrunner and head writer, had a hard and fast rule for her entire writing team, which was we will never write down to kids, right? It doesn't matter if the source material is dark or difficult or even complex. We're going to find a way to get this across in a way that stays true to the source material, and Wishbone still has a part in that. And so the example I have is Frankenstein. We did an episode called Frankenbone. It was very difficult to do. Um, and we were all so busy just trying to make the show that at the time we did the fantasy parts, at the time we shot that, I was just running lines because the visuals were fantastic. They'd gone, the art and props and production had gone just completely old school, and it just looked fantastic. And Gigi did such a great job making up Matt Tompkins to look like the creature. So that's what we were all focused on. Now we get into post-production, and I'm starting to reread these lines, especially from that creation scene. And it to me is starting to read a little more like Young Frankenstein.
Mm,
Not as a parody, but I suddenly realized that what the author was trying to do was lessen the psychological impact of this moment. And I looked across the glass. I'm in the recording booth, and I looked across the glass at Stephanie and Rick, and I looked at Stephanie, locked eyes, and realized in that moment she thought the exact same thing. And so she ran out to go to her office to get her dog-eared copy of Frankenstein, and I ran out to my office to get my dog-eared copy of Frankenstein. And we came back, and we started rewriting that entire scene. And then subsequently, we had to rewrite a couple more scenes because visually, what Wishbone was doing in those scenes was rejecting his creature,
hmm
but I was trying to voice jokes in that moment to lighten the mood, and that just wasn't what the show was about.
Right.
And so like the dog nailed his part of it, and then I had to go back, and Stephanie and I had to rewrite my vocal part of it to match what he was doing. And so that's like the biggest example. But the main thing is I just observed him all the time. So if he was on set, obviously I'm watching him because the camera's watching him. But offset, if he was in a scene, or if there was a scene being shot where he's not in it, or he just had a break, I would just go and observe and watch. And that gave me more insight into how to put his personality together in my head than anything.
Hmm. Sounds like you're a dog psychology expert then.
That's a terrifying thought, Preston. For any dog, that is a terrifying thought.
You're one with them. I love that. That was great. And I want to ask Betty and everyone else, but Betty, TV, the landscape of television has changed so much since Wishbone in this 30 years, and talking during this documentary about all of these memories. And I just think to myself now after watching this doc, I was like, all the kids and the new generations going through today and all the beautiful and tragic stuff we're seeing on TV. Why can't we have a dog to help us navigate this maze in everything, which would be so much better? And do you think this entire generation, new generations, why do you think they still get emotional talking about this little dog and this, why, coming back to this documentary, why do you think they get emotional?
Well, I think you guys have said it. It ties them back to their childhood. And one of the wonderful things about that's what I'm seeing. It was a wonderful time, and it was a wonderful experience. And I think kids Wishbone was a pal when they got home from school, and for a moment, even if their life was chaos, there was just this wonderful character they could engage with that opened up the world of literature. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I just think it was really special in that way.
No, yeah, you are. You like, I mean, because part of it is like seeing the dog and everybody, it's that innocence of the kids and going through these novels that have real situations. And I just love that that was the essence of the show and teaching kids like these things. And yeah, I just, I get, a little choked up just thinking about like that's what TV was like back then. And we can have
Yeah,
a return to that.
yeah, it would be wonderful, right? So much is driven by money, and it wasn't an inexpensive show to make, but it was really ambitious. And we tried to make little mini movies, and I think we did. And I
Yeah.
think those little mini movies created some magic for children, and that's what they want to return to, and people, it was things are, the world is kind of a scary place, it's kind of always been that way, there was I think it was a really wonderful time in general, and in general, when it pulls kids back to this nostalgic glow of the happiness of their childhood, it makes you feel good. And yeah, I wish we could recreate something like that for kids today. But it was challenging and it was really different. And I think it would take a production company would be really brave to do that, and to also calculate it so that you'd be able to cultivate both the audience and the merchandise. So the merchandise is a lot of the ways these shows make money. And so if it would had been spread over time, and you see that in the end of the movie when we broadcast it, and all of this work, these little mini movies, you know, in what, 8 weeks, they were all broadcast. So I always felt like if we space it out over a week, kids could rewatch. Um, but yeah, it would be wonderful if something like that could come back, because that's what's really great about public television is it really can, and there's really great shows on right now in all kinds of places. I mean, Stephanie's stayed in children's television. She's a great showrunner. I love her show, Hilda. I love everything she does. So, but it was a very unique kind of property, and wouldn't that be fun if we could see something like that happen again for kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No.
kids today have Bluey, so dogs are the answer.
There you go, Preston. You are right.
Hashtag dogs are the answer. I love
Dogs
that.
are the answer.
Dogs are the answer. And did you find that doing this documentary, Joey, that, hashtag dogs are the answer and just the education of it?
I, well, I mean, going back to your previous question, I mean, if you look at the social media comments, that's what kind of opened my eyes to it. Is that everybody's comments are, well, oh, that's made me why I wanted to be a teacher or a scholar. And I taught my kids, I show my kids Wishbone. And it's why I got an A in my English class when I was in 8th grade or 5th grade, because I didn't read the book, but I watched the Wishbone episode.
Right.
It was the Cliff Notes for kids.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you even see like when I'm on Instagram, they'll say like, "What's your favorite
Right.
character that's play?" And then you'll see Wishbone, and they'll be like, "Protect him at all costs." And it's so joyous to see that for so many
It was
people.
pretty. It's true though,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'd love seeing those cycle around. That's part of, those memes and whatnot, that
Yeah.
made us go, it's, as Joey says, it didn't go away. They just kept coming up and coming up. And I'd have friends just and former students or current students just text me something like, "Have you seen this?" And that's a big part of what made us go, there's probably something here. And really, props to Joey for being, yeah, there's something here. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Larry, you go to a lot of cons these days, and you're talking about Wishbone and everything else. Is there is there something that people bring up the most, and what is something that people don't bring up enough that you wish they knew?
I mean, I don't. This is an interesting question. I get lots of different, widely varied stories from people.
Okay.
To go back to a question you asked earlier, why do now grown people who have children of their own yearn for a show like this so much? They tell me. And one of the things is, I think children today, because of technology primarily, have much shorter attention spans than they used to.
Yep.
And I think that millennials may have been the last generation that understood the concept of story from beginning to end. And, in an arc, and it takes time, more than 15 seconds to tell a
Yeah.
good story. And I think maybe they see that missing in their children, and they're thinking, well, let's, if only we had something like Wishbone again. But I get all kinds of stories from people, man, and some of them make me pretty emotional. I'm not gonna lie. I've had several stories of people tell me that when they were children, they had severe ADHD, and watching that program was the one thing that could sit them still for 25 to 30 minutes every day,
Mm.
because they got so locked in on the character of that dog and watching the dog. And the dog could be frenetic for them. It was almost like they were able to stop what they were doing and actually focus to let Wishbone do his thing. I had one con, no kidding, where a woman came up to me and she had two teenage kids with her, and the minute she approached the table, she started crying.
Mm.
And I didn't know what to do, so I stood up and I came around and I said, "Is it okay if I give you a hug?" And she nodded, and so I did. And her daughter, who's probably 13 or 14, said she's been practicing what she's going to say to you.
Oh,
And so
Wow.
she did not say it out loud. She said it just in my ear. And I later asked her, "Can I share this story if I don't give your name?" And she said, "Of course." She whispered in my ear,
You can do it.
I know. She whispered in my ear, "I came from an abusive household, and this show was the only escape that I had."
oh,
So I hugged her a little harder, and we eventually took some pictures and did all that nonsense, and she went on her way, and I was left with that.
wow.
Like, I thought it was hard enough having someone walk up to me, look me in the eye, and say, "You were the voice of my childhood." I take that really seriously. But to then have a story shared like that, and now I've had lots of those stories. Not that intense, but along that vein. So I think the lasting legacy of this show and why it's still relevant to a lot of people, for me personally, anecdotally, is that everybody's story is different. And that was the beauty of that show. They were different stories that connected wildly disparate cultures and time periods and connected them all back to you, to make you understand that at the end of the day, we can all be the heroes in our story, and we're all going through the same things. It doesn't matter where you're from, what your upbringing is, what your socioeconomic position is. None of that matters. At the end of the day, we're all human, and we're all just trying to be the hero in our own story.
Beautifully said. I think we all hugged her in that moment
Yeah.
as you were
Yeah.
describing that.
Really powerful.
Thank you for sharing that. That was amazing. Let me switch gears to lift it up. If
Please,
there,
let's switch gears, please.
yeah, let's switch gears. Oh God, if Wishbone, there's a new season. If there is, what novel over the past 40 years do you want to see Wishbone inserted into to tell the story? To me, it's A Clockwork Orange. I want to see Wishbone in A Clockwork
My
Orange.
God, come on, man.
No. Can we do that to
Oh.
his eyes? I'm not
Can't
so
keep
sure.
that dog.
Kubrick is
Open.
rolling in his grave right now.
He would love it. He would love it. So what novel would you want to
I need the
see?
dog to move camera left.
100 takes.
Oh my Lord.
We're only
in
an
heaven.
hour 18. We can go further. We can go further.
Is there a novel that you'd want to see him in? Anything from maybe like a Stephen King novel or just anything over the past 50
Graphic
years?
novel.
I don't know. Like we've been asked the question, like, what's the show you never got to produce, or what's the book you always wanted to produce you never did? But you have to remember that when we did our show, everything had to be in the public domain
Yeah.
before we could even get near it, right? So, like nobody's asked in the last 40 or 50 years, for me, it would probably be something in the sci-fi genre. Gosh,
Well, Dune.
maybe Douglas Adams, something from Douglas
All
Adams.
right. Hitchhiker's
Yeah,
Guide. All right.
maybe something like that. Yeah. Yeah. 42. That's
Yeah.
the
The answer to
sequel.
everything is dogs are the answer. Yeah.
Dogs are the
Woo, all
answer.
right, I got mine. Now y'all are on your own. Y'all got to figure out how to answer that question.
Yeah, I have no idea. I've been a nonfiction guy my whole life. I read nonfiction just nonstop, and so that is tough. But the one that I always wanted to do was Dracula when I was
Ooh.
on the show. Not sure what part Soccer Wishbone would play, but that's what I always envisioned. But your point
Van
about Stephen
Helsing.
King, geez, I mean, any Stephen King book, that'd be fantastic.
I love it. And like even like the popularity of Hamilton would be great to have.
Yeah, speaking of
Wishbone.
musicals, yeah.
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 Man,
I
I'd
mean,
you
love to
brought
do a
something really
Wishbone
unique
musical, but only if Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote it.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'd be like, dude, I can do all the rapping. You just write it. I got this.
Oh, did you ever make a rap Larry with Wishbone?
No, never did.
Damn it.
Never did.
you know,
Would have been
that's
kind of
so
funny. What's that,
that's
Betty?
so interesting. That's such an interesting idea. My first thought was, well, ever the producer, it's so expensive to get the rights to any kind of, book that's, why classics work so well. And I love Swiss Family Robinson. But so as you guys were talking, I was like, well, I wouldn't do that unless they came to us and said, but wouldn't it be fun to do a collab? You know what I mean? See if Lin-Manuel wants to
Yeah.
collaborate. I don't know, but we need to loop Stephanie in there, because she's, we had fun conversations. We talked about this a little bit when, a couple of times, but, yeah, it's just pie in the sky.
Yeah, Preston, do you have one that you'd want to see?
Good question.
Well, with Joey mentioning Stephen King, my mind immediately went to Pet Cemetery and how different that might be.
Because I know you love that.
It would just be an actual pet cemetery. It would be the movie would be over in 5 minutes. It's like, we're here today to lay our good friend Puddles to rest.
I know it would definitely win the long walk.
Yeah.
I just thought about that, and you said it, and I was like, yes, the long walk. He would win the long walk.
Where is everybody? Is it just me?
That would be great. And like, do you think in this world we're living in right now, everything's digital, there's so many podcasts. Do you think if Wishbone were rebranded today, do you think he would have a podcast and he would spend 3 hours arguing whether The Great Gatsby was overrated?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, Wishbone is a storyteller.
Yeah.
And so I think I think he'd be excited to explore any medium in which he can continue to spin yarns and tell stories. I'm often reminded of, I just finished reading it for like the second or third time, the memoir from Kevin Smith, the indie film director who made Clerks.
I love his writing. It's great. Yeah.
And it's a great book. Love it. Love his sense of humor. But, that's exactly what he did. He made a certain number of movies in a certain medium. And then he decided it was time to move on. And he got into podcasting before it was even a thing.
Yeah.
And it's just because he's a great storyteller. And so in that vein, I think, yeah, any medium in which Wishbone could, continue to do what he's always done, I think he'd be all up for that.
No, that's awesome. Any last questions, Preston?
Yeah, I don't know. I have so many more that I'd love to ask, but I guess I'll close out by asking. There was a moment in the documentary that I really liked that somebody said, if you have no detail, you have no interest. And so I'm curious for each of you, on the original series, what has been your favorite, most meaningful detail that you still carry with you in some way?
Mine is silly.
What's yours, Betty?
Mine is completely silly. The cheese wheel, neck bone. You know what I mean? Yeah. How many? Do we have multiple neck bones? Do you know what neck bone is?
No.
You probably don't. So we had to have a stand-in for the dog, and and Stephen Kujay, and we had to was stand-in, but it was really for doing the costumes so that they could fit his costumes. And so Stephen Kuche made a stuffed animal. It was probably Larry that named him Neckbone. So, but no, I love that question about detail. You guys do ask really great questions. I think that was Barry talking about that.
It was Barry.
But that literally popped to my mind because one of my favorite memories are kind of the inside things, the things with the crew, our crew videos that we made. Because it was just an amazing collaboration, and we just had fun together. So
yeah, we had a band. So on Friday nights, we would take over part of the sound stage. All the crew and cast that knew how to play, musicians and sing would come on, and they would play, and we'd have a party, and that would be our big Friday night. So that was another great thing about it.
yeah. Joey plays an amazing "Play That Funky Music" white voice. It's really good.
True story.
He's really
True
good.
story.
Are you singing it and playing guitar?
I was singing, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and jumping up and down like a weirdo.
I love it.
It's really good.
What about you, Larry? Detail?
The detail. There's a moment that will live in my mind forever. I don't remember the episode we were working on. We were shooting on the contemporary side. It had been a very, very long, difficult day. And we just couldn't get this shot. And there were disagreements between director and DP, and Joey's trying to keep everything, he's got to be the voice of reason. And I'm in the doghouse outside the soundstage listening to all this go down, right? Because the boom mic is wide open. I can hear everything. And it's just a simple push in on Soccer's face that's basically going to take us to the act 2 break. And it was just extremely tense on the set. And I'll never forget. And again, it was the same kind of moment that I had when I auditioned for the role. I just chucked everything to the wind and decided to do a thing. And I only did it because I just needed that very tense moment with all these people that I love to be broken. So they're pushing in on Soccer's face for the umpteenth time, and he's looking in the camera, and I'm supposed to say, I wonder what I'm going to do. And I did that, but then it's got to linger for a minute. And then I went, I'll sing show tunes. And then I just belted out like my best Ethel Merman impression. And I just started going, I've got a feeling that love is here to stay, that. And I heard the entire set break up with laughter. And I knew in that moment, okay, we're past the hard part. We're past the hard part. Now, never forget this. This is the moment. Joey leaned into the boom mic where no one else could hear him, and he just said, thank you.
Good. I love that detail.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear, because all throughout the documentary, you hear almost everyone that's involved say it was a fast-paced environment. We were thrown in the deep end. We didn't know what we were doing. We were doing it on the fly, but at some point, like what you're saying, like confidence or like something came into the picture where you felt like I have it, and it's more than just us pushing forward to keep moving in this mission-oriented mindset that y'all probably had, that it just felt like it's no longer work. We're creating happiness.
You said it.
You said it. I speak for Preston, I believe. Thank you so much. This has been such a treat for us. Larry, Joey, Betty, we can talk to you for 3 more hours, but we'll save that for another time. Joey, where can everybody find What's the Story, Wishbone?
Starting today on Apple, Amazon, and YouTube Movies. Go out and get it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and then we'll also be releasing a Blu-ray late in 2026.
Oh,
cool.
Criterion Collection?
Well, yeah, lots of extras. So you need to watch it now, buy it now, but then you'll have a whole nother platform to watch it on late 2026.
You got to have Barry do the cover art then.
Yeah.
There you go.
That'll be good. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
you, guys. Thank you
Great
for the
fun.
opportunity. It was good to talk to you.